So in this tutorial, we're going to take the Starry Night tea light, which is a freebie, currently a freebie, at dreamingtree3dsvg.com, and we're going to actually remove the design on the inside and customize it. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that Surecuts Lot 6 is open. I have mine open. I'm going to open up the Starry Night tea light folder, and inside that folder is the SVG folder. There's a total of 4 SVGs. I'm going to just bring them all in for now, so you can literally take and just drag and drop them right into Surecuts Lot. Something I wish you could do in Design Space, but maybe one of these days. And tip number 1 here, one thing to keep in mind is you can work around the mat. It doesn't really matter if it's on the mat or not right now, but keep in mind that you want to do your best to not resize anything. We want to try to keep everything at the original size. If we are going to change any of the sizing, we want to make sure that we do it all together. So the first thing we're going to do to begin customizing this is bring in the main part of our lantern. Okay, I'm going to bring it in on the mat, and you can zoom in by clicking this little zoom in tool on the left-hand side and just zoom in, or on your keyboard on a Mac, you can hit Command and then hit the plus. And you can also use this little slider to zoom in or out. You can do it here. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. So anyway, we're going to start by using the pen tool. The pen tool is a little bit more advanced. Okay, so I'm zooming in pretty much as far as I can go. And over here on the left-hand side, you'll see the pen tool. And I really want to zoom in real close. I'm going to click the selection tool and hold down the space bar so I can move and drag this up. So I can start here at the bottom. Might zoom out just a little bit. Might be a little and too far. And again, grabbing the pen tool, I'm going to start at this corner here and just press and click once. It's going to create a dot. And you'll notice that it creates another dot that's kind of free-flowing. Depending on where you put your mouse, it's moving around. So now I'm going to head over here to this other corner and click again. And now we have a straight line, and it's ready to create the next line. Okay, now I'm actually using a Mac mouse, and I'm using the little wheel in the center to scroll up. Okay, I'm going to go here up to this point here where you can see it's starting to curve. Okay, I'm not clicking here. I'm going to click right here, but roughly at that point. So I'll click there. Okay, I'm not sure why that straight line's there. Don't worry about it. And then we're going to go up here to the center, and we're going to click and hold. Now I'm not letting go. Now when I click and hold, it creates a point there, but also allows me to change the shape of it. So what I'm doing is I clicked here and I'm holding from here. I'm going to move my mouse over to the left, and you can see it's creating an arc. And I'm going to keep going until that arc looks just about right. We want it to match the contour of the existing shape there. Now this isn't going to be perfect. Okay, we're not using Adobe Illustrator, and I am not an expert using the pen tool, but I know enough to be dangerous and get the job accomplished, which is what I'm teaching you. Okay, so take a look at that gray line and just make sure that it's on top of the blue. You don't want it on the white like that, because it's not going to help us any at all. You want to make sure that that entire thing is on the blue area. Okay, and if this can't be completely horizontal, it's okay. Just make sure that it's within the blue. Now I'm going to let go, and now you can see what's happening here. It's creating another line, but it's already curved based on this little bar here. Okay, so I'm going to bring this back down here. What we want to do is roughly put it here. Again, we want to make sure that gray stays on the blue section. We don't want it on the white. We want it over here. And then we can click. And now I'm going to scroll down. This should be mostly straight. So we should be able to go all the way down here and click back on that first dot that we created. And now we've created that shape. Okay, so let me zoom out so you can see it. Okay, there we go. So what we want to do is take this, make sure you grab your selection tool over here on the left, and over here in your layers, you can see we can turn on and off that new shape that we just created. Now, looking at it, if I zoom in a little bit, I can see here that I wasn't perfect with this, and that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece by clicking on, you can click on it here, or you can even select it here in your layers, okay? And I'm going to zoom out, get this nice and centered. Again, I'm holding my space bar, clicking on the mat, and I can move it back and forth, up and down, wherever I want. So I'm going to click on this shape here, have that selected, and I'm going to hold Option and Shift at the same time. And then I'm going to grab this handle on the bottom right-hand corner. And what that's going to do is it's going to resize this shape. Okay, it's going to make it bigger or smaller, but it's going to keep it centered where it is. Okay, so if I were to let go of the Option or Alt key, look what would happen. Okay, it keeps it at the top leftmost point. But if I hold down Option right now, it will resize it from the center instead of the top left. So holding down Alt or Option when you resize keeps the shape in place and resizes it from the center instead of from the top left. So again, let me show you. If I let go of Option or Alt and I resize, it's resizing it from the top left. So I'm going to hold down Option again and I'm going to resize, because what I really want to do is keep it in place, but just make sure that it's large enough that it is in fact covering and on top of the blue area. Okay, so it looks like on the left and right side I've got that covered, top and bottom I've got it covered. I'm going to let go. Okay, so now it's larger than it needs to be so that I can get rid of that design in the center. So let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, before we go any further here, a couple things we want to do. First off, we're going to select this shape that we just created, and I'm going to copy it. You can do so here, or you can go to Edit, Copy, or you can right-click and copy. 3 ways of doing it. Does the same exact thing. So I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it. So I have an extra copy here. I'm going to keep that over on the side for now, okay? Because we're going to be going back to this shape a number of times to get rid of the rest of these. Okay, so we have the copy of this shape. I'm going to move it off to the side. You can take it off the mat, doesn't matter. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take and select the main structure as well as the new shape that we created. And I'm going to do so by making sure that I have my selection tool selected. And I'm going to click over off to the side here, click and drag a box around both of these layers. Okay, so now we have both of these layers selected. We're going to go to Path and click Back minus Front. Okay, and you can take a look and see what happened there. The shape that we had, the gray one that was on top, took away the design. Okay, so that's what we use the Path tool for, among many other things, but that's one of them. Now, one other thing you want to do before you move on to the next step, if you've not clicked on anything else, you can right-click on this and hit Group. Okay, we need to do that because otherwise the score lines are going to start moving. If, for some reason, you clicked off of it and you don't have the option to right-click and group, I still do. Let me click off of it, then I'll click this. If I right-click now, group is not an option. So what we need to do is draw a box around the main cut and the score marks. So it's going to, these are separate, by the way. This main cut and these score marks are separated. Whenever we do a path operation like we just did to remove this, it separates or ungroups those two sections. So again, if you're unable to right-click on this and select group, just make sure that you draw a box around the cut and the score marks, and then you can right-click and hit group. Okay, so that's going to keep the score lines in place with this, as you can see. All right, so now we're going to go back here. I'm going to grab this shape, and we're going to copy and paste it again because we need another one. Okay, so I'm going to hit paste up here. We've got one more, and I'm just going to go over here and zoom in. And again, we're going to try to keep this on the same plane. Okay, there we go. You can zoom out. And again, we're going to make sure we have the selection tool. Click and drag a box around the main cut and that new shape. Okay, so I didn't have everything selected. You want to make sure that that box is completely surrounding the shape, like that. There we go. You can tell it selected it because this bounding box wasn't just here. Let me show you again. If I just select it from here and here, notice what was selected. That's because when we drew this box, this thing was completely inside of that box. And it was the only thing that was completely inside the box. If we want to select both, the blue and the gray, we need to make sure that all of this is inside this blue box. Now, if you notice on the bottom left, that little blue piece, it's not in there. So if I let go, it only selects this because I didn't select this whole thing. So I got to go back out a little bit further. And now all of it's inside, and now all of it's selected. So we're going to do the same thing now. We're going to go to Path, Back minus Front, and now that one's gone. Okay, don't forget, before you click on anything else, right-click and hit Group. And again, we're going to copy and paste this and bring the next one over. We'll zoom in. And there's, I don't want to get too technical here, but of course there are more precise ways of lining this up. I'm literally just eyeballing it and also using the nudge tool here to help me move things ever so slightly. If you take and hover over this, you'll be able to see the cut lines, and I can see that my gray is outside of those cut lines, so I'm in good shape as far as making sure that I'm cutting out all of the interior design on this. Okay, so we'll do the same thing again with the selection tool selected, drawing a box around, and then we're going to go to Path, Front minus Back. And then we're going to go to Path, Back minus Front, and now that one's gone. Okay, so we'll repeat that a couple more times. Let's do this one here. Let's zoom in on that. Okay. Take that, we'll give that a little nudge down. Looks like it's a little too high. Move it over to the left. And let's bring it down a little more. Maybe down one more. Yeah, up one more. There we go. Okay, got it. So again, now I think I may have forgotten to group these together. Let me see if my path, my path is not available because I forgot to group this with the score mark. So we need to select all this, right click, and group this together first. The path feature is not going to allow you to do any of this stuff, maybe except for union, with 3 different things selected, 3 separate things selected. So because the cut, the main cut, and the scores, and this were all on top of each other, that constitutes 3 elements. But when we take the main cut and the score lines and group them, and then put this on top, that constitutes 2 elements. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now I notice this time my gray piece is behind the blue piece. So over here in the layers, what you can do is take and click on this. You can see that this is the gray piece here. I'm turning the eyeball on and off. You can take it and literally click and move it up so it goes on top. So that way I can see that a little bit better. Okay, it looks like it's pretty good, but I'm going to click on it and give that a nudge down, maybe twice, and that looks good. Okay, so let's zoom out. And again, selection tool is selected. Draw a box around the 2 sections. And we're going Path. I keep doing that. Path, Back minus Front, not Front minus Back. Okay, a couple more to go. Copy, paste. And let's bring that over here. Zoom in. Okay. And I'm going to move it manually real quick. Take a look. Definitely needs to be nudged to the right. Maybe one more nudge right. Down. Down. I think, eyeballing it will definitely work. I'll go over to the right one. And that looks good. Okay, so we're going to zoom out, and I think I forgot to group them again. Let me see. Forgot to group the main cut and the score lines. And there you can see under Path, the only thing I can do is union. We don't want that. What we can do, instead of having to move this out of the way, We can just turn it off for a second right here and lock it. So let's turn it off by just clicking on the eyeball. That hides it. It doesn't delete it, it just hides it. So I can actually draw that box around this, the actual cut and the scores, without selecting that shape. And I can right click and group. And now I can just turn it back on. Okay. I'm going to bring this back up. For some reason, after I group it, it brings the layer down. That's okay. All right, so I've got that piece still in the same spot. I'm going to draw that box to select everything. Go to Path and back minus front. There it goes. Okay, don't forget, right click and group. I'm going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to do the last one here. Okay, let's take a look. Definitely needs to go to the right, and maybe one down, two right, one down, and maybe back left. Yeah, it looks good. Maybe one up. Let's see. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, so we'll zoom out. We'll get the last one modified. Okay, and again, front minus back. I keep doing that. Back minus front. There it is. Okay, so we have it done. Let's take a look. If we hit preview, it'll show you all the cut lines. And even though we eyeballed it, you know what? I think it looks fine. I don't think anyone's going to notice, a 1/10 of an inch. Okay, now check this out real quick. Again, if after you do a path operation, if you click and move things, look at how you can see that the cut is moving, but the score lines are not. So again, very important to make sure that if you're doing that sort of thing with score marks, that you right click and you keep it grouped. So I did that. Now when I click on it, the score lines move along with it. So again, sizing, keeping everything at the same size is very important. So we do not want to resize any of these pieces. For the sake of saving my work, what I'm going to do is select this, and I'm going to copy it. So I can click here, or I can right click and hit copy, or you can go to edit and hit copy. And I'm going to click here, new project, and hit OK. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste, and that's going to take that and just put it on a fresh mat all by itself, and I'm just going to leave that there. Another smart thing to do at this point is just to save your work. Okay, so I'm going to hit save project as, and I'm going to put it on my desktop for now, and I'm going to call it Starry Night Customization. Okay, and I'm going to keep it at the Shortcuts Lot 6 format, hit save. All right, so I know my work is saved. I know this is ready to go, and I'm going to go back to the original program. I can get rid of this now. I'm done with that. The base, we don't really need to worry about the base because we're not changing anything about the base. Now, one thing I want to do real quick is just make sure that the vellum still fits, because we did cut out a little extra out of the main part of the lantern or the tea light. So I'm going to copy this, right click, copy. I'm going to go over to this new tab that I created here, Starry Night Customization, and hit paste. Okay, and I'm just going to grab the eraser tool here, make it a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to erase all of these except for one, just so it's easier to work with and I've got less stuff in my face here. Okay, so look how easy it is to isolate things in Shortcuts a lot with the eraser tool. So now I just have the one, and let's zoom in here. You can see that despite the fact that we did these customizations, you can see where that red line there in the center, that's this line here. Okay, so we have plenty of room for glue here. Okay, so this guy at the original size is going to be fine. Okay, so we don't need to worry about modifying the vellum piece. I can get rid of that. Let's go over here real quick. Now, these are the panels that are going to go inside of the lantern. Okay, we're not quite ready to work with these just yet. Now, in my case, what I'm doing is, and actually, let's just get rid of the vellum. We don't need that. I can click on it with my selection tool and hit delete here, or you can just hit delete on your keyboard. It'll get rid of it. This is the little piece that we created to help us get rid of the inside of the actual design. And I believe this shape is also going to help us with the panel. Okay, so let's take a look and see if that's the case, because the panel, I believe, is pretty much the same size on the inside when we designed it, except the outside is just a little bit, it's not as thick from here to here. Okay, so let's take a look and see. Yeah, and I think I'm right here. What I'm going to do is this shape that we created, you can see it's the exact same color as this panel. I'm going to, with it highlighted, I'm going to click on this little art palette here, and I'm going to change the color of the fill, and I'm going to make it green just so it stands out. Okay, and now I have it right on top, and you can see, let's give that a nudge. Let's just see if it does in fact, it looks like it'll work. Yeah. Well, you know, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. So in this case now, that ungrouping and grouping thing that was happening because of the score lines, it's not going to happen this time because there's no score lines. This is just one layer. All right, so let's try this. Let's highlight all this stuff because we still need to select everything. We're going to go to path, front minus back. Whoops, I don't know why I keep doing that. Back minus front. Okay, so that same shape that we created with the pen tool, it looks like it's also going to work for us if we decide to create panels for the inside. Okay, I'm not worried about that right now. That is just something, an extra that I wanted to show you. One other thing that I wanted to do is show you how to customize this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I should have created an extra copy of that shape. I just did an undo. I'm going to right click and copy this and go over to my Starry Night customization and right click and paste so that I have it here. And what I want to do with this is I want to add a lattice to this, a lattice pattern. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger than it really needs to be because this is no longer being used to cut anything out. This shape here now is going to help us create the lattice for it. So I'm going to hold down Option and Shift while this piece is selected and grab this and make it a little bit bigger. It's okay if it's a lot bigger. We just want to make sure that when we pop it in here that it fits within this area. Okay, and you can tell that it's a little bit too big, slightly. It could probably work, but I don't want to risk it. So I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller. Again, holding Option and Shift or Alt and Shift. And I think that looks about right. And actually, this time, I'm going to resize it by just dragging it over to the right like this to make it a little bit wider. I'm not holding Option, not holding Shift, not holding anything. Just clicking on it and dragging it. I just want it to be a little bit wider so that it fits over the sides a little bit better. Okay, so let's see how that looks. That looks good. Looks like we've got enough cushion on all the sides. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under Effect, and I'm going to hit Lattice. And this little lattice box is going to show up, and we can click Preview. And here it shows you what it's going to look like. Okay, and we can click and play with the angle. So we can click here and change the angle, which as you can see, changes the angle of one of the sets of lines. I kind of like it like this. Okay, we can increase or decrease the gap between each of the sections. Okay, I don't want it too wide. I don't want it too small either. And it looks like it jumps from point 1 to point 3. Let's see what point 2 looks like. I like point 2. You can change the width, and that actually increases or decreases the width of each of the sections. Okay, so I don't like that. I'm going to go 1.5, and that might work. Okay, let's see here. Also, you can change this so that it just gives you lines horizontal or vertical. I'm going to keep it so that I have both, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so you can see what it did here. And when it does that, you just want to pay attention and just make sure, don't resize anything. Just make sure that this will actually cut out. Okay, it looks like it will all stay in shape for us nicely. That should work. And let me see what happens if we move this. If we move it, that's fine. Now check this out real quick. You'll notice that if we start to increase this, it adds to it automatically. It adds more of the lattice to it. Okay, so with this lattice feature, I'm just going to take and adjust this a little bit until I get it to look the way I think looks good. And again, we're going to need to make sure that this will fit on here and that we can weld it all together. Now, looking at this lattice shape that I created, I'm going to give this a nudge up. Okay, and it looks like it may not fit completely here. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. Bring it back down. Okay, so that's within or just above the score marks. It is within the boundaries here. I think that looks great. I'm going to leave it just like it is. I'm going to right click, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click merge. Okay, and what that does is it prevents it from updating in real time now. Now when we move it around, it's set in stone and it's going to get skewed or misshaped. Okay, so that's what the merge does. And now we can take it, I'll give it a little nudge up. I want to take and copy and paste this because we're going to need a bunch of these. Okay, we're going to need a total of 6, obviously. So let's right click and copy and then paste, 3, 4, 5. We need 5 copies of it. We'll just put those off to the side and they're all identical now. Okay, and now let me move these out of the way. We're going to take and join these all together. Okay, so now before we move on here, what we need to do is we need to select the actual cut file, right click on it and ungroup it. Okay, and that's going to take and separate the score marks. And over here on the right hand side under layers, you can see this is the layer for the main part of the lantern. I can turn it on and off. And then just above it, after we ungrouped it, put on a separate layer, are the score lines. You'll notice here if I click on and off on the eyeball, the score lines hide and they reappear when I click that. Now what I want to do here is make sure that the score lines are not affected with the next few things that I do with the path menu. I'm going to lock it. Okay, so right next to the eyeballs, a little lock. You click on that, and now no matter what you do, you can select it. Actually, you can't even select it, which is good. We don't want to select it. Okay, so now we're going to, with our selection tool, draw a box around these 2 items. Okay, and we're going to go to path, and we're going to hit union. Okay, it's okay. It changed the color to green. Nothing to worry about. It's fine. Okay, so let's grab this now and pop this in place. Just try to keep it consistent. And I'm going to nudge this down. Nudge it over a little bit. That looks good. Grab the next one. And now, because we have this little snap feature enabled, this is going to pretty much put these all in the roughly the same spot relative to the last one that we put in. That one obviously didn't snap correctly, but that's okay. It will. Okay, give that a nudge. That looks good. Let's bring this one over here. And again, you can play with the size of the lattice. The style of the lattice doesn't really matter. That really is a personal preference. Okay, so I've got all of them in place. And I'm going to go ahead and select everything here. I'm going to go to path and hit union. And it takes all of those and connects them. And now all that's left is the cut and the score lines. Here's the score lines. You can see I'm turning them on and off. And actually what I'll do is I'll make this blue again so it's easier on the eyes. And you can see the score lines are still there in the same spot. I'm going to turn off the lock. I'm going to select all. And then right click and group. Now we have the original design along with the score lines still intact. Let's take a look at the preview. You can see where all the cuts are going to be. Another thing too that you can do, instead of having the panel completely cover the inside, including all of these details, you can just create a panel that just covers the outside. Honestly, if you are gluing the vellum down, as long as you glue it down to the perimeter, it should be fine. So what I mean by that is, let's just do this real quick. Let's clean one of these up and get rid of the design. This is the panel that goes on the inside of the lantern to cover up the fact that we glued vellum to the inside of it. If you watched the video for our Starry Night tea light, you'll know what I'm talking about. So take a look at that if you're not sure what I'm talking about. It does have a panel on the inside. Okay, and I'm going to move this over and up. And we'll bring that up again. Yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, we're just creating the panels for the inside. So we'll take this, select all, and then do a path, front minus back. I did it again. Okay, so now we have this panel. We don't need to do it a bunch of times with this. We don't need to do all of these because we're just going to use this one 6 times. It's the same thing. So I'll explain what I just did here so it all makes sense to you. Getting rid of that middle part is nothing new. We did that with the main part of the lantern, but there's obviously the exterior, okay? But if we were to flip this over and look on the inside, the vellum's going to get glued to the inside. Then on top of the vellum, we're going to put this inside on top of the vellum that we glued to the inside to hide the glue around the perimeter of that vellum. Okay, so again, refer to the original assembly video for the lantern so that you see what I'm talking about. But this little piece is going to go on the inside of the lantern to cover up the little glue spots that keep the vellum in place. So you can use this as is if you want, just to make it easier to use in Design Space. We can take this and right click on it, copy it, and paste it 6 times since we need 6 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you want, you can lay them out nicely. Doesn't matter. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm just getting this whole project ready for Design Space, because you can't cut directly in shortcuts a lot, but we'll make it easy. So we'll bring in, and they don't even need to all be on the mat. Okay, so we have 6 of these, 6 of these. Let's grab the vellum pieces. We're going to need those. We'll put those on here. And then finally the base, we'll pop that in. Everything's still at the correct size. Okay, so here we go. We have a customized version of this using the lattice feature. Everything fits perfectly. We're going to go to File. We're going to export on the desktop. We'll call it Starry Night Custom. And we want to save it as an SVG, putting it on the desktop, hit save. And then we just want to make sure that we click Design Space Compatible and hit OK. And it's going to save it for us. Okay, so let me open up a new project. Here is the Starry Night custom file that I just created in Designs or in Shortcuts a lot. We'll drop it in and you can see everything's there. Okay, I've got my Design Space open. I'm going to go to New Project. And when it finally decides to load it, there we go. And we're going to go to Upload and Upload Image, Browse, go to the desktop, and here's the Starry Night Custom. There it is, Upload. Everything's already at the correct size. Okay, and all we need to do is right click and just ungroup this, and it should keep everything. Let's take a look here. Yep, so that's all nice and grouped. That's all nice and grouped. These we never grouped. It kept them separate, but that's okay because they're the same color, so they'll all cut together. And then finally we have the actual lantern here, which we want to make sure we attach. We want to attach this as well. Everything else seems to be fine. We can hit Make It, and it's going to sort everything on our mats. There's the 6 pieces for the inside. We have our vellum. We have our new customized lantern, and we have the base. So you can find the Starry Night tea light by visiting our website, 3dsvg.com, and you can click on free SVG files. It is currently free. Eventually it will be retired, but not for some time. So you can find that there. And if you need a copy of Shortcuts a Lot 6, you can locate it and buy your copy through svgtools.co. That's co, not .com. If you already have a version of Sure Cuts a Lot and you want to upgrade to Sure Cuts a Lot 6, you can click on Software here, go to Sure Cuts a Lot, and there is a link for the upgrade. The upgrade is only handled through CraftEdge, but we do get a small commission if you use this link for your upgrade. Otherwise, if you don't own Sure Cuts a Lot, you can grab a copy of it here. It also comes with a gift card for Dreaming Tree for $6.99. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Sure Cuts a Lot 6 tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Hey, thanks for crafting along with me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of our other videos, and also please consider hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to visit our site and check out our free SVG section, where we have over 140 free SVG files complete with assembly videos. I look forward to crafting with you soon.